She really doesn't need an introduction. Everybody knows my friend Megyn Kelly. She is a best-selling author, and she has a brand new podcast out, her self-titled show with Devil May Care Media. Megyn, so good to see you, and it's a pleasure to have you on. You and I loved what you had said too, because and it trended. There were people reacting to what you were saying. You had tweeted about the debate, Kamala Harris, who was smirking and eye rolling. You tweeted, "Take it like a woman, don't make faces," and immediately the blue checks. Take it like a woman, like a woman. I understand what you meant. I'm not quite sure why that meaning fell upon deaf ears elsewhere, or why no one else could understand it, because it's true. Like, she was taking offense over silly things. Your thought?
Well, once again, you can't go by Twitter versus real life. I thought it was kind of pathetic because what I meant clearly was, like, be your most strong, serious self, and you'll get your chance to respond in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. And she was the difference between the both of them. And I know you picked up on this as well. When she was speaking, he was just kind of looking at his notes. He would look at her. He was very complimentary, I thought. I don't recall her ever saying anything nice to him, I don't think. I mean, he congratulated her on the historic nomination that she has as vice president with Joe Biden, and her background, but yet he was mansplaining. What did she do to him? What's the female equivalent of mansplaining if it's in reverse?
There was no mansplaining. It's amazing to me how people cannot see through their sheer hatred for Trump. It's so obvious how it affects the discussions after the fact. Steve Schmidt, there's no one in the country who hates Donald Trump more than Steve Schmidt, who used to be a Republican and now is the lead Trump hater. Actually said the moment that the fly went on Mike Pence's head, it was the devil, that it was the devil coming to visit Mike. I mean, like, these people should not be allowed on television to put this nonsense out in the world. So, like, me saying, take it like a woman, of course that was beyond the pale, because they think flies are little devil messengers. Why would we listen to these people?
Right, that's true. Yeah, that fly on his head. That was an interesting moment in the debate last night. But no, I mean, and I agree with you. I would just think, if you're there on the stage and you're in a debate, I really don't think that Kamala Harris would be. I just don't think that she is someone who would be genuinely offended by being disagreed with. But I think she would play up to the optic of it being cast as sexist as some sort of advantage, because she hasn't said anything to dispute it. Which, to me, that kind of, doesn't that betray the whole idea of feminism and these empowered female candidates? Because disagreement isn't persecution.
Absolutely. I just said today something to the effect of, what equality is you can punch somebody in the face and they can punch you in the face right back, rhetorically speaking, obviously. But I mean, who doesn't think Kamala Harris can handle herself in hand-to-hand combat at a debate? She clearly can. And it's paternalistic to suggest he needs to not interrupt her ever because it would be somehow sexist. Women can get interrupted too, and it's not sexist to interrupt them or to criticize them. In fact, it's sexist to claim they need your protection.
Yes, exactly. I love the response that you had to one individual, and I think we've been on air with you before. I just remember your comment. You had said in response to, well, we have to support each other. Women have to support women. And you had said, well, I don't have to support her, and I don't have to not, and she deserves to be criticized when it's merited as well. But this idea that it's not support, it's fealty. Isn't that what they mean? Pledging fealty.
Oh, first of all, I think it was Leslie Marshall. Yes. I think she misunderstands the role of a journalist. And who could blame her in today's day and age? She's like, well, that one isn't saying what the others are saying. And it is not my job to support her or anyone else in this election. I call them like I see them. And having anchored 5 different presidential debates, I do have thoughts on how best to conduct oneself during the course of it. This is one of the reasons I was critical of President Trump's performance last week. And this time she got it, because she could have done, I would have given her high marks if she had just been conscious of that split screen and not scoffing at so many of his answers, because it happened repeatedly. Yes. And it wasn't just the faces. It was also the I'm speaking thing. I like that. I like that once, maybe even twice. But over and over and over, made it look rehearsed, and it got irritating. And I know I'm not the only one. And I'm open-minded to her performance. I'm sort of looking, how is she handling it? How, like, she's saying substance, but you have to look at how they're actually behaving as well. And she just, like, her indignance at, like, don't you lecture me, Mr. Vice President. You could feel her disdain for him. And I don't think that's a good thing for her.
Yeah, no, it isn't. There were I don't think anyone, even particularly on the left, I don't think anyone came out and said today that Pence didn't win. I think that's one of the reasons why we are seeing these sexist cards being played and the mansplaining.
Oh no, they are saying that on the left. They're definitely saying he lost.
I mean, my gosh.
I had the misfortune of watching some MSNBC last night after the debate, and they all said he lost. I mean, listen, on my show, what I thought was, since he didn't kill her, since it wasn't like the end of her in that debate, you'd have to give the win to Team Biden-Harris, because Trump at this point needs a game changer. But what they were saying was, and I quote, Mike Pence looked flaccid, limp, and lame. That from MSNBC.
But that's not sexist.
And on from there.
Yeah.
But my God, flaccid? What do you think they're trying to communicate?
Definitely not about his hair. Definitely not about his hair. Okay, so you've moderated presidential debates. You've been in that seat, and you know how difficult it is to herd cats on a national scale like that with the eyes of the nation on you. I wanted to get your thoughts as to the moderation, because sometimes I feel really bad for the moderators, because it's difficult. You have these two, I think you have to have a very healthy ego to run for president anyway. So you have, I mean, some pretty healthy ego people on stage. They are not going to be shushed, no matter how many times Susan Page tried to politely say it last night. Talk to me a little bit about this and the best way to handle it. And how do you think that each of these individuals, Susan Page and then Chris Wallace before her, performed?
I thought she did a good job. I thought she played it right down the middle. I actually printed out a transcript and read every single question that she gave to them, and they were right down the middle. They weren't charged like Chris Wallace's were. It was like, this is what people say you believe. Do you? It was like very straight down the middle. And it isn't easy to herd these people in. And as the moderator, the number one thing you're worried about is time. Because you have an outline, you have a lot of subjects you want to get to. You have some questions that are tough for one side, some questions that are tough for the other side. And every time they go on, it costs you another one of your questions, and it costs the balance of the debate in terms of the substance. But I almost felt like they reined in the moderator and the candidates too much last night, because a little interrupting is okay. Just because Trump was, chief interrupter last week doesn't mean we have to get rid of all interruptions from now on. And anybody who interrupts is a sexist or, basically just an ass. That's not true either. The natural flow of a debate is when you can feel the other person kind of wrapping up a sentence, you try to jump in with yours. And when they go back and forth, those are great moments. Right. The problem with the Trump debate was he just never let Biden speak. That was not okay. But I almost felt like it was a little bit more boring this time. It was like, and now you for 2 minutes, and now you for 2 minutes, and then now you for 2 minutes, which wasn't her fault, and it was just an overcorrection.
It was kind of funny the way she tried to rat Pence, like, thank you, Mr. Vice President, thank you. And she would just say the same thing, like the same message you get when you have to get off the little at the terminal at the airport, get off the little train. It's like, please stand away from the door. Please stand away from the door. I got the same feeling with that. So the next debate, and we're talking with Megyn Kelly, who has a brand new podcast out with Devil May Care Media, and she's actually associated with The First here, who helps bring the simulcast of this radio program to Pluto TV. The Biden campaign is rejecting Trump's campaign, their request to push both debates back. And there was, from the Debates Commission, a proposal to do virtual debates. The president says no virtual debate. I realize that he's getting over coronavirus. His doctors say that he is not symptomatic anymore and doesn't have a fever, and he's starting to produce antibodies. I'm going to go by what the doctors say on this. But what are your thoughts on a virtual presidential debate? Does that kind of suck the energy out of the room a bit?
Of course. Why can't we have the debate in person if he is negative for COVID and doesn't have symptoms anymore? Why? Why not? I mean, last night I thought it was just ridiculous how they treated, since Mike Pence had been near people who have COVID, even though he's negative, they treated the guy like he had the bubonic plague. It was like 12 feet apart, plexiglass. I mean, I think he was in a hazmat suit until the moment he came out. And it was like okay, so I realize COVID has some dangers and it's been bad for certain people, but let's not overdo it because you know how President Trump got in trouble this week for saying, don't be afraid of COVID.
Yeah.
Well, he's right to try to remind people that this is not fatal for, in most cases, 99% of the people. When you're older, when you're over 70, it's at worst 5% of the people around there. So I just thought, this is getting over the top. But I think they should just hold the town hall if those two things happen. If he's negative and if he doesn't have symptoms, they should hold it in person. But I do think Trump's going to have a tough time not doing it virtually if they stick to the timing of it, because look what else is happening on Capitol Hill. They're going to have the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation hearings via remote. And they're right now fighting a battle, Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, all those guys, with the Democrats saying, no, we can't do a hearing this important virtually. And all the Republicans are saying, yes, you can. You're good.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a little hard for him to turn around and be like, but not a presidential debate. That's a different, just do it. He's got to get out in front of the people to turn his poll numbers around, which are not great.
Yeah, and in some of these battleground states, particularly, I keep watching. I know that what Hillary Clinton, I think, was +6, and in some of these states, there's a little bit more of a lead. Looking at some of the polling, and I know that Republicans tend to kind of discount polls, but the midterms weren't incorrect. That polling wasn't incorrect, and so whatever discrepancy that we had from 2016 till now, I think, or from 2016, what was being polled of what the reality was, it was remedied during midterm.
Yeah, well, and also don't forget what happened right before the vote last time around. Jim Comey came out saying they found more secret documents on Hillary Clinton's laptop. Remember Anthony Weiner?
Yes.
He's married to Uma Abedin, and they found them it was like, what?
Yes.
And I will never forget Sean Hannity walking into the studio that night, who had already told me that he didn't see the math that would get Trump to 270. He didn't see the math. And he was like, he's back, right? Because of Jim Comey. I'm sure we're going to have more October surprises, but that was a huge one and a really good thing for Trump. And I just don't know if Republicans should be assuming something that big will happen this time around.
It's 2020, so I pretty much think anything's going to happen. I would not be shocked if Trump showed up with Bigfoot or something and said, look what I found out. Or remember the aliens and all these stories leaking out? Well, here's the space. I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised at this point. All right. So your new podcast, and I hope that everybody goes and checks it out, goes and listens. Your podcast, your self-name, it's The Megyn Kelly Show. You can find Megyn Kelly Show on Twitter as well. And tell me about, because everyone was wondering what your next step was going to be. Where's Megyn going to go? Everyone, I think, thought that you would go and because other networks obviously value your influence and your insight. And I love the renegade independent, because this is where everything is going. I love the path that you're just taking a machete and chopping through. This is awesome. And how do you love podcasting? Tell me about this, because it's a little different.
I'm loving it so far. I love working for myself. I love making sure that I have a team that's happy and taking good care of them. I love the independence of the editorial more than anything. Nobody gets to tell me what to say. You don't like it? Don't tune in. No problem. Or tune in and hate listen. That's okay too. But you don't control me. Corporate overlords, they don't control me. Woke scolds, they don't control me. I control me. And I'm going to say what I want to say, because this is America. And I think the American people are damn sick of being called all these names when they're just trying to have honest discussions about really complex issues. They basically changed gender, right? From it used to be, we understood that when it was a given, and now suddenly it's somehow anti-trans, you're transphobic if you think you're a man because you do have a penis and you were labeled a boy when you were born. This is we have to be able to talk about these things. You can't just shut down those discussions by calling someone a name. And so I'm sick of that. It's un-American. It's worth fighting for, to be able to uphold the First Amendment and the principles behind it, have these full and free discussions in a forum in which no one's going to shut us down, and just let her rip. And that's what we're doing.
There you go. I love the range of guests that you have as well. And it's Megyn Kelly, unfiltered and uncontrolled, and hate listen if you don't like her. I like that. Tune in and hate listen if you don't like her.
I don't care how I get you.
She'll get you though. Megyn Kelly Show on Twitter, and make sure to follow her, Megyn Kelly Show, and find her on Apple Podcasts. Find her everywhere. Congratulations on this. This is exciting, and I'm glad you had never really left, but now you're back in a big way, for the lack of a better way to say it. So
I'm feeling
good to see you.
feisty. And tomorrow we're going to drop our latest podcast with Candace Owens, which I think people will enjoy.
Definitely. Yeah, people will like that. Megyn, always so good to see you. Thank you, my friend.
You too, Dana. I'll see you soon, I hope.
Yes, ma'am.